And 5G is closer than we think as stakeholders on the value chain are starting to become part of the solution for next generation networking. Here to tell us more about the migration towards 5G technologies is Dr. Michael Peters. He's the Chief Technology Officer for the wireless business line at Alcatel-Lucent. And Michael, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Is it Mike or Michael?
Michael.
Michael, okay,
absolutely.
Good. I want to start right off the bat talking about the challenge or the challenges really facing 5G right now. There's a clear and evident push in the technology realm for 5G, but maybe not a clear business case or business cases for 5G just yet. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, I mean, if you talk about a challenge, that's the challenge the industry has. We are so incredibly technology focused. And of course, there's in the engineering, in the academic environment, there's a huge excitement about a new air interface, new core technology and so on. But at the same time, it's also clear that from a revenue perspective for the entire industry, we do have to enable something new. And the work going on that new business case, on how this will enable new use cases, create more value, that is the critical question that we have right now.
Now, of course, other areas of the world maybe might be a bit ahead of the U.S. right now as far as 5G goes. Of course, some government regulations can stifle innovation. Some may argue that the U.S. is more stifled than elsewhere, and then vice versa. What do you think about the U.S.'s position on 5G right now?
I think there's a number of things happening with TIA, with 4G Americas bringing out some white papers, that it's definitely trending in the right direction. But if you look at it from a global perspective, you see that there are some nationals, regions, or transnational regions like Europe, China, Japan, Asia Pacific, that are pushing way harder and that have the government really trying to enable new use cases and allowing operators to try things out before the standards are there. And since this is a wireless technology, quite often that scarce resource spectrum also comes into the picture. And so allowing operators to already now start thinking about what spectrum could be available for 5G and think about how they might use it, I think is a critical item, is something that in the US we definitely need to think about. On the other hand, at the same time, the voice of the industry associations and driving specifically innovation and the right questions to enable innovation in the US is very important as well.
Michael, I think there's still a little bit of ambiguity as far as what 5G can offer that 4G cannot. Is it primarily the marrying of narrowband capabilities with broadband capabilities?
Yes, absolutely. So that's easy, yes. But the way to look at it is operators in the past, when you look at 2G technologies, there's number of subscribers driving essentially your ARPU, your revenue. And at the same time, these subscribers generate traffic, and that's driving essentially how much megahertz or hertz you need. And for 2G technologies, that relationship was pretty linear. More subscribers, more hertz. With 3G technologies, that started to go up a little bit as people started to do other things than just make phone calls. I mean, at the end, traffic with phone calls, you only have 24 hours a day to make phone calls. Once you start downloading video, that trend starts to change. And what we've seen with 4G is actually the asymptote, the extreme, where the amount of traffic on a network is no longer being driven by your subscriber growth, it's being driven by the subscribers eating way more data per month than they did before. And so you have this asymptote. And 5G will need to solve that problem for sure. But it's not just about that problem, because that value of providing broadband is something that's pretty well understood in terms of market value. And building a new network to continue this doesn't make sense, because LTE will continue to be there and it will continue to serve that use case very, very well. At the same time, however, as you said, there's the Internet of Things, small devices, small packets, and this is something where 4G is not particularly well suited. And actually from a trends perspective, it's pretty much orthogonal to the one trend, which is a single device eating all of the capacity of a cell. The other orthogonal trend is in fact an infinite number of devices, all eating almost no bandwidth, sensors, control, but very chatty. So zero bandwidth, but an infinite number, and eating all of the control plane, so nobody else can make a phone call, but they're not consuming bandwidth. And combining those two, that's really the challenge the industry has when defining 5G.
Michael, as you know, when we roll out new or next generation technologies, there seems to be maybe a fracturing of the ecosystem as far as collaborating and making sure that we reach that technology as soon as possible, that for the consumer and for the industry as well. How do you think that's going to play out with this evolution towards 5G?
Well, the good thing is that with the previous generational changes, people have grown wise, so to speak. We had the TDMA, CDMA wars, we had the GSM, we had CDMA, WCDMA, CDMA 2000. And what we see, in fact, is while there are a number, as I spoke about these industry consortia and transnational programs, while there are a number of programs that all have a different emphasis on which part of the 5G requirements are important, there's a pretty good overall consensus on where we need to go, because everybody wants a single global standard, because it's a single global standard that really gives you the economies of scale and that allows you to create much more value than you would have if you would just have a use case or a standard that's only one particular reason.
Michael, of course, Alcatel-Lucent's a big player in this space, in the 5G space, the next generation networking space. What are you doing right now to promote 5G?
Well, number one, coming back to that global harmonization, we're very active in standards. Now it's early days. And in fact, there's only one part, which is essentially the system architecture standards, that have started looking at what would be the requirements from a 3GPP perspective. So we're very active there. There'll be a huge workshop in September this year to define essentially what Release 14 will be about, which will start next year. And that will contain, in fact, the first real study items on 5G. At the same time, we continue to work very specifically on making sure that we have a clear, non-fuzzy message, because that's the danger of having too many technologies, too many use cases. So we're very clear. We may be wrong in the end, but right now it seems like the industry is moving in the trend that we've predicted 2 years ago, is essentially 5G needs to be about low-band spectrum, so traditional cellular spectrum first, because if you think about the Internet of Things and enabling a hyper-efficient control plane for small packets, that's something where you will need coverage first. So low-band spectrum. Second thing that we've been very clear about is then that once you have that low-band spectrum, you're using it for control plane traffic, not data plane. And then the migration later on will be, we have a 5G system, your 4G phones will be on 4G, your 5G phones will connect to 5G, and then will be redirected to 4G for broadband applications. We'll be using the 5G carrier for other applications and so on. And millimeter wave then is something that will come in a second step of 5G that you will add on. So I think that's the two critical items is really participation in standards. Of course, we like to come and explain in your studio as well, but also making sure that we have a very clear message. So it's not about broadband, it's about the Internet of Things as well, and it's about low spectrum first, high spectrum secondary.
It sounds like, Michael, that you have a number of milestones to reach, not only in the standards and technology side of it, but also with your message from Alcatel-Lucent. So you have your work cut out for you between now and, I guess, 2020, is that right?
Oh, that's when there will be commercial users, so that's definitely true.
All right, Michael, thanks for your time.
Pleasure.